You've weighed your beans, distributed the grounds perfectly, and tamped with exact pressure. But when you pull the shot, the water channels. It sprays sideways and extracts unevenly across the basket. If your puck preparation is flawless, the problem usually sits further upstream. Your grinder's internal burrs are likely sitting slightly tilted, throwing off the extraction before the water even touches the coffee. This diagram shows a cross-section of two flat burrs. Beans fall into the center and are pushed outward by the motor's rotation. They can only exit once they are ground small enough to fit through the outer gap. Because these burrs aren't perfectly parallel, the gap on the right is wider, allowing larger, uneven boulders to escape into your portafilter. To fix this, we need to map the exact tilt of the burrs using a standard dry erase marker, and then level them out using ultra-thin metal shims. By forcing those burr plates to sit perfectly parallel, we narrow the escape route. The boulders disappear from your grind distribution, eliminating the primary cause of channeling and leaving you with a balanced, even extraction. Before making any mechanical changes, clear every single coffee bean out of your grinder's chamber. The burrs must be completely empty to get an accurate reading and keep your motor safe. Next, we need to find the chirp point. Turn the grinder on and slowly adjust the dial finer. Stop the exact moment you hear the sharp, high-pitched sound of the burrs barely touching each other. Stop adjusting and immediately turn the power switch completely off. Running the motor while the burrs are touching will permanently damage it. With the power safely disconnected, continue turning the dial finer. Turn it until the burrs completely seize up and the dial can no longer move. This is your lock point. Check the numbers on your adjustment dial. Count the distance between the chirp point you found while the motor was running and the lock point where the burr seized. This numerical difference is your chirp-to-lock distance. A smaller distance means the burrs can get physically closer to each other without touching. We are going to use this baseline metric to measure our progress. Unplug the machine from the wall to ensure there is zero power flowing to the motor. Then, disassemble the upper housing and remove the top carrier to expose the burr set. Take a standard dry erase marker and apply a thick, even layer of ink across the entire flat outer edge of one of the burrs. Reinstall that marked burr into the grinder and plug the machine back in. Turn the motor on, slowly lower the setting back down to the chirp point for just a second to let the metals rub against each other, and then back it off. Unplug the grinder once more and pull that burr back out. Look closely at the flat outer edge where you applied the marker. You are looking for the exact spot where the metal rubbed the ink away. The area missing ink was the very first part of the plate to make contact, which means it is the highest point on the burr. Because the ink only rubbed off in one specific area instead of around the whole circle, the burr is sitting at an angle relative to the motor's rotation axis. This tilt is the mechanical source of your grind inconsistency. To level the plate, locate the high point where the ink rubbed off, and then look directly across the burr to the exact opposite side. That opposite side is the lowest point, and it needs to be raised. Place an ultra-thin stainless steel shim directly underneath the mounting screw hole closest to the low point. Never place the shim in the empty space between two screws. Downward pressure from flanking screws will bend and permanently warp the burr over the shim. With the shim safely under the screw hole, insert the screws and tighten them down evenly to secure the plate. Wipe away the remaining dry erase ink from your previous test. Apply a fresh, solid ring of ink completely around the flat outer edge. Put the burr back into the grinder and reconnect the power. Slowly lower the dial to the chirp point one more time to check your progress. You will likely need to repeat this a few times. By repeatedly finding the high point and shimming the opposite low point, you mathematically force the plate to level out until it sits perfectly perpendicular to the motor shaft. You know you are finished when you inspect the burr and see a full wipe. That means the marker ink has rubbed off seamlessly across the entire 360-degree circumference of the metal. Fixing one plate only solves half the problem. To get the burrs perfectly parallel to each other, repeat the entire marker and shimming process on the opposing burr. This chart shows the mechanical impact of your work. After fully reassembling your grinder, test your new chirp-to-lock distance. That gap should now be significantly smaller, proving your burrs are aligned and sitting securely closer together without touching. Because the gap is even, those massive, boulder-sized coffee particles are gone from your grind distribution. When you go to brew, your coffee puck will now hold up against much higher water pressure without breaking apart at your usual grind setting. Water now flows evenly through a uniform bed of coffee. Channeling stops, and your extraction converges into a perfect, centered single stream.